some shifts to that. But before I could get too deep into my talk, Alaska, has anybody here been to Alaska? Okay, a couple people, oh my God. So there's a few common questions I always get about Alaska, so I wanted to kick off with that. First of all, the big question is, how do you deal with the light? And the light being the fact that during the summer we have these really long days. In fact, our longest day is June 20th, and it's over 19 hours of daylight. So what this means is that you actually get like this bonus day after work. When you come home from work, you can go out for a jog or go out mountain biking or whatever you want, and all of a sudden it's 11:30 at night. So you got to kind of save up on your sleep during the winter. One thing that's interesting as a parent is if you said, okay, be home by dark, your kid's gonna be rolling in about 3 in the morning. Yeah. So, not the best. Now the flip side of that, of course, is that in the winter, where I live in Anchorage, our shortest day is about 5 hours. And so it's dark when I go to work in the morning, and it's dark when I come home in the evening. But also all good, no problem. You just really need to make sure to get out and have some fun during the winter time. So whether that be going out and skiing, or I have a winter bike, I ride my bike on the trails in the snow, or as Alaskans, we call when we leave the state going outside. So we may go outside to Hawaii for a couple of weeks to get some vitamin D. So that is one of the main questions I always get. The other one is, how do you deal with the extremes of the weather? And the answer to that one is actually a lot more simple. And the answer to that question is that there is no such thing as bad weather. There's just the wrong gear and the wrong attitude. And that is kind of my transition into the fact that I think that that applies in business as well. And so I want to tell you the story of an Alaska-born and raised company and how we've used the right gear, the right tools, and the right attitude to drive business results for our company. So I mentioned that my original title, the role of culture in business transformation. Culture drivers, who are we? Business results, what do we do? And bringing it all together, enabling transformation. Literally the most boring, non-informative title of a talk ever. All right, I apologize for that. But upon further reflection, I'm thinking that a better title for this is hunting for unicorns in your organization that can help you get stuff done, right? Because frankly, they're there, and after we get done with this talk, I hope that you actually will know, yep, we have some unicorns in our organization, and that's typically who we turn to get stuff done, and give them the right tools to get the job done, and really help to nurture a culture that unleashes some of their unicorn magic, as I like to call it. So my goal for this presentation is that, first of all, if nothing else, you're going to see some lovely pictures of Alaska because I didn't put a lot of words in. I've got a lot of great images. And so you can see that it's a great place to visit. If you want to come up and visit, now you have a friend. It is, and then also that the right people will help you drive results in your organization. Giving them the right tools does matter. And finally, having a culture that really nurtures these unicorns in your organization will help you to drive those results. So, let's change slides here. So who are we? At GCI, we have 4 key brand attributes. So we are trailblazers, we are leaders, we're connected, and we're neighbors. So I'm going to dig in a little bit to these because that really kind of defines our culture at GCI. So this friendly guy with this funny VW van, this is actually one of our founders. His name is Ron Duncan. In 1977, Ron Duncan and another gentleman named Bob Wolf actually started GCI as a competitive long-distance carrier. So back in the days when there was money to be made in long distance. Like who even thinks about long distance anymore, right? Yeah. So starting there, you know that we're a company that knows a little bit about trailblazing because we're really seeking to elevate the experience. But we also know a little bit about transformation because, of course, 40 years later, we're still in business and long distance is not driving the bottom line. Ron was one of Alaska's first tech entrepreneurs, and he really kind of helps me think about my unicorn trait number 1. And that is, he was willing to take some risks. A word that's really popular today is vulnerability. And if anybody reads about Brene Brown's work, right, we all know about the importance of being vulnerable. And that means taking a risk. It also means potentially being willing to fail. And that is my trailblazer trait number one, or my unicorn trait number one, is that you're willing to fail. Today, we are a company with over 2,300 employees based in Alaska and Seattle and Denver. And we have some remote workers scattered around the United States. We provide voice, data, wireless, and internet services to customers all over the state of Alaska, as well as managed services to customers in the Northwest. And as I mentioned, we had a merger in 2017 with Liberty Interactive, which tripled our value. So, stock options. So, our second trait is that we are leaders. We're engaged, we're boundary-pushing professionals who thrive on doing the impossible. And this is a unicorn trait number two, and that is there are people who are out in your organization who are pushing the status quo, who are striving to do better. And the gentleman on the right in this picture is Bob Wolf, so he was our second founder. He really believed that people in rural Alaska deserve better connectivity options. And in the 70s, this was really a groundbreaking concept. So when I talk about rural Alaska, I mean places that as recently as the last several years are still using honey buckets, right? You cannot access these places by roads. You have to fly in there. They can be cut off, from transportation, from kind of the rest of the world by weather extremes. So this is a really, really challenging environment. And we had these leaders who said, but how can we serve these people? We can do better. And that's my unicorn trait number two, is challenging that status quo. Number three, we're connected, and that means that we strive to be intuitive and forward-thinking in terms of our technology trends and innovating. And this is my trait number three for unicorns, is that they're curious, right? They're always striving to learn something in their organization. You might find them reading industry publications. They're probably asking a lot of questions. They might be studying for an advanced degree, right? But these are unicorn traits that you look for in your organization. Finally, we're neighbors. So we're trailblazers, leaders, connected, and neighbors. The neighbors are these friendly people who seize opportunities to make a difference in our community and our company. And the way that you'll recognize this in your unicorns is that they care. So simply put, they're the ones who are going to be putting in the extra hours to really make a project happen, to drive it through to success. They're also probably the ones that that you turn to when something needs to get done, or when you have a question, or when you're saying, hey, in the organization, how do I do this? Who knows how to do this, right? Your unicorns are going to be able to help you with that because they care and they're ready to partner with you. So that's kind of who we are, but what do we do? What results have we accomplished because of this? So I mentioned we started out as a long-distance carrier. We're the largest and most diverse network in Alaska. We connect more than 240 communities, and we've invested $3 billion in the state. Pretty good for a little tiny Alaska company. And this is, my notes here, this is where I give you a little hand map perspective of the area that we serve. So right now Alaska has about 740,000 people that live in the state. This is the state of Alaska. Kind of looks like it. I live right here in Anchorage. If you overlay this on top of the United States, St. Louis would be about right here. This would be the border with Canada in Minnesota, right? So we serve customers from here, which would be in Jacksonville, Florida, to here in San Diego, California, and from Missouri all the way up to Minnesota, right? It's big. We cover a lot of space, but only 740,000 people. So you can imagine we really have to get good at at being efficient at the way that we would deliver our services. Let's see here. Oh, and just for size, anybody from Texas, California, or Montana? California, all right. So Alaska is bigger than California, Texas, and Montana all put together. So just some scope on our size. We now deliver, in addition to wireless, internet, local phone, and cable, we also deliver long-distance services as well as managed services to customers in the Pacific Northwest. And that would include customers like Alaska Airlines, the Gates Foundation, as well as supporting our oil-filled friends in the oil patch, as we call it. So, first of all, we have a great wireless network. We've invested more than $97 million in Alaska since 2014. And has anybody watched the Ice Road Truckers? You ever seen it? Yeah. Okay, so there's a 415-mile stretch of road that goes up to the North Slope of Alaska. And this year, we actually just installed a cell site at Coldfoot Camp, which meant that we actually cut that distance in half where there was no communication, because before then they had just CDs and satellite radios. So again, just kind of really striving to drive these results. We're doing things that probably shouldn't be possible and shouldn't make sense because we had those uniform traits. We provide 1 gig internet service to a higher percentage of residential customers in Alaska than in most major cities. Less than 20% of Americans actually have access to 1 gig internet service, and in most major urban areas it's around 50%. In Alaska, we have 70% of our population that we provide 1 gig internet service to. Now, it helps that they kind of mainly live in these areas, but still. Now, those things are all really great, and that's great, that's who we are. But I want to talk to you about what happens when we really push the envelope. And we do big things, unique things. And this is a Terra project. And so, that's my map of Alaska. This is kind of the west coast of Alaska over here. Not a lot going on. This is the Bering Sea. This is Deadliest Catch. This is going to be everything based on Discovery Channel shows. And so, so out here in this western Alaska, those customers had previously been served only by really expensive, low bandwidth satellite internet service. And so it made it impossible to do things like have access to telemedicine or like diverse educational opportunities. And so as part of going back to that spirit that we had from our founders, those initial leaders, we decided to build out this network called Terra, and it stands for Terrestrial for Every Rural Area in Alaska. Somehow that works out. And so I mentioned, what does rural Alaska mean, and I talked about the honey buckets. This is an area where, say, for example, a gallon of milk might cost you between $15 and $20. Right? It is so different. And we set out to say, we're going to give them high-speed internet access, right? And to really try and change the lives of the people in their communities. This was a huge undertaking. The project, by the end of the project, was a $300 million project. There was $50 million of that came from the Economic Recovery Act in 2009, but the other 250 actually came from GCI investing in our state and the people that we serve. There are 103 towers on 108 sites. There's over 3,000 miles of microwave and fiber. It was a $300 million investment, as I mentioned. It provides access to 4,500 Alaskans, which means to about 6% of our population. A huge project for a small percentage of our population, but it makes a huge difference to those folks. Just for another one for size, that's actually further than I flew a couple days ago, getting from Seattle to Orlando, which is only like 2,700 miles. It's actually 3,289 miles. And it would take 44 days to hike it. It would take 11 days on a dog sled. I don't know if anybody just watched the Iditarod just finished. And we would take 4.5 days on a snow machine if you went nonstop. And that's, for you guys, that's an Alaskan word that I'm teaching you today, is snow machine. We call them snow machines, not snowmobiles. And it might take you 25 hours if you flew nonstop in a float plane. So it's big. But what it means to the people that we serve. It means access to telehealth. So if you have a person living in, in a village, right, they're able to work with their rural health aide, and they are able to get connected with healthcare providers from urban areas, both around the state and around the country. It saves them money, it saves them time, it gets them faster access to healthcare. Educational opportunities. In a lot of these rural areas, of course, we don't have the ability to have, a physics teacher and a calculus teacher and, foreign language instructors. The kids in rural areas now, through distance education, are able to have access to those opportunities. It makes a difference to them. We have helping out with our safety friends, so being able to actually provide better communication services for like our rural search and rescue teams. And then finally, it opens up some economic opportunity, whether it be for things like, hey, I'm going to order, my paper towels from Amazon, right? I'm going to sign up for Amazon Prime and order my paper towels from Amazon. If I had to buy those paper towels at the AC store, which is the store that's in most rural areas, that might cost me, $20 for 4 paper towels, right? Or for 4 rolls of paper towels. I can order those from Amazon now. It makes a difference. We're making a difference. This is an ambitious project. But back to my story about the unicorns, and that's how we did this, right? So that's what we did. It's a big deal, and I really wanted to tell that story of that it was a big deal. But how did we do it? And it started with our leadership, and they had a vision, right? But there was a unicorn that really made it happen, and this is Rebecca Markley. So Rebecca still works at GCI. She is what I would call probably a super unicorn. She's a trailblazer who's not afraid to take risks. She is a leader who is, is always asking, how can we do more? How can we do it better? She's connected on the cutting edge of technology. She's definitely a curious person and is very smart and loves to learn. And finally, she's a neighbor. She really truly believes that serving the people of rural Alaska is something that she was meant to do, and that partnering with her colleagues around the company and other vendors that we work with, suppliers, was how she was going to get that work done. So I do think she's a super unicorn. But she started at GCI in 2002 as a customer service representative. She had been a stay-at-home mom. So she had a degree in computer science, but she had been a stay-at-home mom and traveling with her husband. And she started as customer service representative. She moved into project management. And by the time that we were starting this project in 2010, they had asked Rebecca, because she had some great knowledge of these rural areas, because it was an area that no one else actually really wanted to work on the rural project. So in 2006, when she went to this rural area, we was like, oh, there's nothing good there. We want to work in the cool projects, right? And she said, okay, well, I'll take it on. I'll take it on. Well, by 2010, when the cool project was building this huge thing, they had their girl, right? She was there. She was already there. She knew the people. She knew how to do business in that area. So they brought her in. Now, at that time, she was a project manager 1 or project manager 2. And we had varying levels in our hierarchy. They said, no, she's the right person for the job. About a year and a half later, the VP who was leading that project retired. And so they said, hey, Rebecca, we think you've got the skills. Take it on. So our super unicorn took it on. They promoted her to a director role. And kind of the rest is history. She made it happen with her super unicorn powers and a lot of teamwork and vision. And she now today is actually our vice president of network program operations. So she now finds more unicorns, trains them, and leads them. And on that topic, she actually started, she's with one of the board members of our GCI Women's Empowerment Network. It's a cultural initiative that we have in the company to really seek to build opportunities for women at GCI. Rebecca started our first mentoring program in there. So kind of a neat story, but it's just a story about how one person can really make a pivotal difference, and understanding who those unicorns are in your organization really can drive results. So here's another, did I move too fast? I didn't. Okay, so sometimes our challenging, I just want to show you a cool picture here, back here for a second. Behind Rebecca, that's a sky crane. It is this giant crane that looks like a dragonfly, and that is how we put these huge towers on top of these mountaintops. So the places where we put these towers are mountaintops in the middle of nowhere. There's no power, there's no infrastructure there. We had to put a tower in the middle of nowhere. She still manages like the fact that we have to get fuel out to these places, right? And just to be able to keep the tower up and running, she still manages all that. But that's a sky crane, and it's a tool to do the job. And I say that because sometimes our challenges don't require a tool like a sky crane, but they might require us to make some changes, right? So we started out as just a long distance provider. We now provide lots of services. That meant that we probably did that through growth and acquisition, which meant that we ended up with a lot of billing systems. Does anybody experience that in your organization? Right? Okay, it's painful, painful and not fun, and that's a terrible customer experience, right? So my job is in customer experience. It's an awful customer experience to explain to a company, to a customer, why, yes, you need to pay us for your internet and your phone bill on this one, but your wireless and your TV will come on this one. Why can't you do this? And I kind of thought that too until I joined the project that told me, no, it's really hard to put all these things together, right? Because it touches just about every part of your organization, from your customer service, from your provisioning of services to asset management. It touches everything, and it's a huge project. So for us, this was a really transformational project because we approached it in a different way. In many projects in the past like this, we would have had this led by an IT team. And in our Polaris project, which was what this was called, it was led by a group of business leaders and then their support teams, and IT executed on that vision. Now, I've come to since learn, because I'm kind of new in the BT space, that really kind of looks a lot like an Agile model, which is probably not shocking to anyone in this room, right? But it really worked for us, and it worked well. One of the things that was great about this was that our vendor that we partnered with as they built out the system actually did some great documentation of all of our business processes. And it was fantastic. We were super happy to have them. But this is what we got, right? It looked like that. And so this is where I joined the picture here, is that I was brought on the project to find the equivalent of the sky crane to deal with this list of XMLs that I had and to actually do something with them. I like to call them business process inspired because they had multiple starting points and multiple stopping points and went all kinds of places in multiple different pools in a diagram. It was crazy town. So we learned in a hurry. But what we found was that the right tools for the job would make a lot of difference for us. And for us, it was important to find a way to be able to manage this information. So we have been using this Navio Collaboration Hub as a place that we have brought in this information to be able to actually manage that work and be able to collaborate so that I can engage all the different subject matter experts on these business processes in order to actually have them be something of value in our organization. Now, I'm going to give a caveat that I was a newbie when I started this, and I think I'm probably still young in my maturity of understanding how to lead this kind of a project. And we jumped in with the tool. We jumped in feet first with the tool, and we didn't lead necessarily with the organizational changes to really support kind of business process centered excellence. And so if this is somewhere that you are in this journey, I'd say learn from me. And you know, the tool is great. I have no complaints. I think it's wonderful. But now I'm needing to go back and actually make the organizational changes that are necessary in order to really get the most out of this and to get the most benefit. And I'd probably do it differently next time, right? I probably will get that opportunity. The one good thing, though, is that I say this is a case of, hey, it's better to be lucky than smart sometimes, or lucky than good. And the positive thing is that now we do have this great catalog of our processes, and so as we go back and we start it right, it makes it a lot easier for me to go in and identify